Amid the starvation crisis in Gaza and the 60,000 people killed there, former Prime Minister Ehud Barak now says Israel is becoming a global pariah. And he's even calling for, quote, massive non-violent civil disobedience until Netanyahu is ousted. And now, in separate reports released simultaneously this week, two leading human rights organizations, B'Tselem and Physicians for Human Rights Israel, say the government is committing genocide in Gaza. The Israeli government has issued furious denials. Let's now bring in B'Tselem's executive director, Yuli Novak, along with Guy Shalev, the CEO of Physicians for Human Rights Israel, who both joined me from Tel Aviv. And it's important to say that this is the unprecedented. No other Israeli organization has taken this step, despite mounting use of this word and accusations of this crime against the current government. So let me ask you, Yuli Novak, first, because B'Tselem has been a leading human rights organization for decades in your country. Since you actually issued this report, what has the response been inside Israel and amongst the Jewish population worldwide?
So thank you, Christiane. I'll just say that in our report, what we try to explain there is exactly the how of what we just heard with your previous guest. So how did we get to where we are? How does this Israeli system works? And what we try to write about and to investigate and to analyze is the policy behind it. And that goes also to your question about how Israelis and Israeli society react to it, because this is part and parcel of the fact that genocide is being committed now by this regime. No genocide in history happened without the support, either by taking part or supporting it from afar, or just turning a blind eye of the people, of the group of the perpetrators. And unfortunately, and it is heartbreaking for me as an Israeli, this is exactly what takes place now in Israel. You asked about the reaction to our reports. I would say that 99% of Israelis didn't hear about our report, because part of what the Israeli media is doing is completely deny Israeli public from knowing what's going on, first of all. And then there is the overall sentiment and something that became almost normal, the incitement for genocide. So I think, again, it is devastating as an Israeli, but it's a really good example for how disconnected a people that conduct genocide can be from what they actually do.
Before I get into the details of your allegations in this long report, 79 pages, I want to also ask Guy Shalev from Physicians for Human Rights, the Israeli chapter. Israel is a nation that was born out of genocide, out of the Holocaust. This is an unprecedented internal Israeli accusation against the government of committing similar crimes now in Gaza. Again, what led you at this time to decide that it was right to use this word, this legal term, in terms of what's going on right now? What was the criteria for you?
Right. So first of all, as Yuli said, we are doing it with a heavy heart because of our history, my personal family history, and my people's history. It's not an easy moment to accuse my own society, my own communities in committing genocide. And for us, we are sticking to the international law, the definition, according to the Genocide Convention that Israel is signed on. And we're looking at the cumulative information that we are gathering from the ground for almost 2 years. We've been working every day in emergency mode for the past almost 2 years to collect the data, to speak with our colleagues in the Gazan healthcare system. And we're looking at the attack, the systematic attack on Gaza's healthcare system and all life-sustaining systems. And when we look at that together, attack after attack, hospital after hospital, blocking of water, blocking of food, destruction of infrastructure that's just needed for people to survive, that's when we get to the conclusion that a genocide is being committed, unfortunately.
So your organization focuses a lot on the medical and the doctors and the hospitals that we have seen and we've reported. And so I understand yours is using that set of information. So you talk about the UN Convention, and indeed the crime of genocide was defined in 1948 by the United Nations as, quote, the intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial or religious group as such. And Yuli, based on B'Tselem's examination, you reach the, quote, unequivocal conclusion that Israel is taking coordinated, deliberate action to destroy Palestinian society in the Gaza Strip. So, as you know, as well as I do, that the issue would be intent. Obviously, Israel denies any intent to do that and clearly consistently denies that it is targeting deliberately civilians and that it is going after Hamas. So what you must have built a case around intent, not just what you're observing. So is that correct? Am I correct?
I'll start. I'll say that you just read the legal definition, which is important. But first of all, let's all remember that genocide happened way before 1948. I mean, the legal definition didn't create the phenomena, the social and political phenomena of attacking another group in order to destroy it. And when we're doing this legal analysis, which is super important because perpetrators should be brought to justice, that's not what help people on the ground today. And this cannot be only a theoretical discussion. So let's talk about intent as we see it, as people who have eyes and ears and mind to think. When the top leadership of Israel stands in the first days of this attack, and I'm talking about the Prime Minister, the Minister of Defense, even the President himself, and telling us what's the goal of this attack. They're telling us destroy Amalek. That means destroy everybody. They are telling us we are fighting human animals and will treat them as such. And I quote, they say it's an entire nation there that is responsible for the crimes of Hamas on October 7th. So when you hear that, and then you look on the results and the outcomes, which we just heard about, and you listen to the commanders and the soldiers on the ground, and take all this into account, together with the fact that even if they didn't know it before, which I have a really hard time to believe, once they saw the outcome of their statements, they for sure understand what it means to send a whole army to attack civilians in another area and instructing them to destroy this whole population, telling them that there are no civilian people there. And that exactly comes back to the intention of genocide. Because, again, genocide is about attacking people who are being attacked only because they are part of a group, not because what they did personally, not because what they think or who they are. And the second thing, that they have no way to protect themselves. So I'll just say, Israel talking about a war with Hamas, but what we are talking about here is genocide. It's a war that Israel started and attacking the entire population of the Gaza Strip. And that was very clear from their statements from the first day and until today.
Can I ask you here, because I'm going to go through some of these quotes that you've just talked about and that we all heard, and that led a lot in the international community to criticize Israeli leaders for making these comments at the beginning and still. But you said Israel started this. They will say, no, we didn't. Hamas started this on October 7th. So I want to ask you both whether you are prepared to also say that Hamas showed genocidal intent and committed a genocide if they could have done more, what they did by targeting an ethnical, religious, national group on October 7th. Let me just ask you, Guy, I don't know whether you've thought about this, but it's a question that other lawyers are asking.
I think, first of all, analyzing what Hamas has done in October 7 is something that is very important. Also looking at the crimes done by Hamas, war crimes, crimes against humanity, during this attack is something that is very important to do. But it's always important to remember that according to international law, according to international humanitarian law, there is no connection between what one party does to what the other party does. And whatever crimes Hamas have done, and they have done that, the crimes, very horrible crimes in October 7, it doesn't excuse or it doesn't justify any crimes done afterwards by Israel in their attack. And I want to address also the question of intent, if I may. The Genocide Convention addresses not only mass killings, bodily harm, but Article 2C of the Convention deals with the systematic infrastructure attack on a people in order to destroy that people. And this is the article that we are focusing in our report on the attack on healthcare and health-sustaining infrastructure. And when you look at the attack on healthcare, you see pattern of conduct. You see an attack after attack. Already in October 13, just 5 days after the attack started, Israel issued 22 evacuation orders for 22 hospitals in the entire area of the Gaza City and the northern part of the Strip. More than 1 million civilians were in that area at that time. How are they going? They will be able to survive if all of their hospitals are evacuated? What happens to the patients? What happens to the staff members? These are not coincidental. This is a policy. It's a decision made, and a decision made that the results are very, very clear. And when we look at these attacks, these policies, one after the other, for 22 months of destroying a hospital after hospital, killing more than 1,500 doctors and medical workers, detaining more than 300, these are policies that we unfortunately see the results now on the ground.
Let me just ask you, Guy, because I have to. As you know, Israel says Hamas inhabits those hospitals underneath gun positions, command centers. What do you say to that?
Maybe I'll ask you back. Have you seen the evidence?
I have not, because I haven't been there, and
is
this
no.
is another huge problem, Guy. It's a huge problem. We, international journalists who are fully equipped to be able to see and analyze and report what's going on, and who've spent a whole career doing it, have not been allowed in there. I'm just asking you to respond to their response. And what the US says, and what the Brits say, and what the Europeans have said throughout. You know, it's their defense. No, I want to hear Guy.
So the fact is that the evidence that, so the evidence that they presented is very thin. Israel attacked 33 of the 36 medical facilities in Gaza. For each and every of these facilities, they claim that Hamas has a command center within the premises of these hospitals, apart from two. And later on, Israel took control of these entire facilities, wing by wing, department by department. They had full control over the entire premises of these institutions, but still did not present the evidence. Of course, we can assume that if Israel had the evidence of command centers in each and every of these hospitals, they would present it to the world, because, of course, they would want to show that they act according to these evidence. But unfortunately, there is no evidence, and the proportionality is another thing. You cannot destroy an entire system of healthcare, providing for more than 2 million people, with these very vague and general accusations.
And we can see the result now. People are essentially wasting away. They can't get the medicine, they can't get the care, and they are starving. So, Yulia, I want to ask you, Yuli, some critics have said that using this particular legal term, which is a step above the general accusation of war crimes, which even some Israelis, such as your former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert, former Defense Secretary or Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon, and others, use the word war crimes, but they haven't gone to the word genocide. But I want to ask you, what do you think the result will be? Will the government take your report and say, we're going to do something about this? Or will they go into a greater defensive crouch and, I don't know, fight back harder? What do you think? I guess, what's your ultimate goal?
So our ultimate goal is to save lives and to protect human rights. And no, I don't think the Israeli government showed us any sign that they are about to do it. They don't care about what we say, about what you say, about what the international media say. They've proven us that. They are becoming more and more delusional. You just asked a guy about the medical system. They are also claiming that there is no starvation in Gaza, right? So I wouldn't count on them not to stop it by themselves, not to understand the depths of this disaster that they are bringing upon this land, not only because dozens of thousands of people are got killed and starved and getting killed, but because what they are doing is taking out the most basic sense and rules and norms of humanity out of this space. And that is what genocide is about marking a group of people as non-humans, strip them from their humanity and their rights, and then you can do whatever you can to them. And then, just to say, there is no justification for that. Israel can say whatever they want and use whatever excuse, whether it is Hamas, whether it is October 7 or whatever. And October 7 was real. For all of us, it was probably the scariest days of most Israelis I know, including me. But that doesn't allow you to start a war against an entire people in order to destroy them and to eliminate them. So in that sense, no, I don't think Israel government will do anything. What I do hope for is that leaders of the world, which not for the first time see genocide live, know exactly what happened, very much aware, we are all very much aware of what takes place on the ground. And I agree with you, once journalists will go in, probably we'll see reality that is much worse than anything we know. But it's not the first time that leaders of the world allow a regime to attack people in that way, to conduct genocide, and they are either standing by and let it happen, or keep cooperating with it and enabling this horror to take place. So in that sense, I think it's not only an issue of the victims, the Palestinians or the Israelis as the perpetrators. Genocide is an issue that every human being should be concerned about and stand against. And people of the world need to demand from their leaders to do whatever they can in order to stop the Israeli government from keep doing that.
Can I ask you both, because part of the 79, part of the big report that you've put out, I know there's separate reports, but nonetheless, you've used, and you mentioned it earlier on in this interview, several quotes from Israeli leaders. You quoted Prime Minister Netanyahu about Amalek, which I know goes back to a biblical and historical fight back after an attack. But that, they now say, part of that quote is actually on the Yad Vashem monument. It's part of, an Israeli internal, you fight back when you are attacked. That's one response. When President Isaac Herzog in October said it's an entire nation out there that's responsible. It's not true, this rhetoric about civilians who are not aware and not involved. It's absolutely not true. And we will fight until we break their backbone. And then we're told that in the same appearance, he goes on to say there's no excuse to murdering innocent civilians in any way, in any context. And then, of course, we've got Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, also at the beginning in October, calling for a complete siege. And I think he said no food, no water, no electricity, saying we are fighting human animals. In his context, again, his defenders say he was referring to Hamas, not all people of Gaza. Deputy Knesset Speaker Nissim Vaturi from the Likud party posted that Israelis had one common goal, quote, erasing the Gaza Strip from the face of the earth. So there are a lot of very, very hard comments that have been made by your leaders that would lead you to make certain conclusions. But what do you say when they say, well, no, this was the context and this is what we said, also?
So I would say first, leaders should take responsibility, and our leaders definitely don't know how to do it, not when it concerns their own Israeli Jewish citizens, right, that are being left to die in the hands of Hamas in captivity, and for sure not when it has to do with Palestinians' lives. And, I'm sorry, I can't accept it. I didn't mean that. Well, you are a prime minister. And if you realize that you did something you said something that turned into a genocide, into a mass killing, into a mass destruction that goes on and on and on for almost 2 years now, you had enough opportunities to stop it. And, as we sit now here and talk, bulldozers and D9 are rushing through whatever left of Palestinian cities in Gaza in order just to ruin it, just to make sure, as Guy said before, that there will be no way to sustain life there. That's what the Israeli army is doing now, just as it was ordered by statements of officials that you just read. And if anyone is questioning, no, they didn't stop with this incitement. The Israeli public discourse, including our politicians, but not only, is full of incitement to genocide, a clear and incitement to genocide that mostly is directed towards Gaza. But we have to say here, and that's also in our report, we are also here to warn about the possibility that the genocide will not stay confined to Gaza, because the same regime with the same army, the same commanders, and sometimes the same practices, even if in a lower scale, are taking place in the West Bank. And right now there is no mechanism, either local or international, that is working to stop or able or want to stop Israel from doing it. And the Palestinians everywhere under Israeli control is now left completely unprotected.
Guy,
I'm going to say something about, sorry.
Let me just ask you this, because we may be running out of a bit of time, but in the report, you basically both say the October 7th Hamas attack led to, quote, profound social and political changes in Israeli society. So, Guy, I just want you to reflect on that. And also, a personal question to you both of the toll it's taken on you to collect this and to report it, knowing that your nation will not thank you for this. Guy?
Right. So, when we look at the attack on Gaza, it, of course, hasn't started in October 7. We look much more to the past. We see how the dehumanization of Palestinians is part of Israeli culture and Israeli politics for many, many years. And definitely the October 7 attack, with the trauma it aroused in Israeli society, was a trigger, a very dangerous trigger for people to just consider the other as less human than they are. It caused people to not want to engage, not want to get the information. That is what our two organizations are really struggling with. We are collecting the data, speaking in Hebrew with the people here, with our families, our communities. We want them to know. We want them to know what's going on, because denial is what allows these atrocities to continue. And we are hoping that by them reading, getting to know what's being done in their name, will get people here in Israel to rise up, demand the government to stop these attacks, and hopefully stop the genocide.
Well, Ehud Barak has asked for peaceful, non-violent mass resistance. Yulia, in the last 30 seconds that we have, how are you feeling after doing this? Are you afraid?
I am afraid, but not more than I was 2 days ago or 3 days ago. I am afraid about the future of this place, about my ability to raise my son here. What I do feel a bit better is the fact that we were able, in our organizations, Israelis and Palestinians, we have dozens of Palestinians from the West Bank, from Gaza, and from inside Israel who work together with Jewish Israelis to try and make sense of what we see around, although this making sense is an horrific reality that we need to face, and to struggle together, opposing also the polarization and the imagination that this imaginative thing that or ethos that we cannot live together. So basically what we are trying to do here is take forward the struggle of the people who live here, in order to create a space where we all can live safely.
Well, Yuli Novak, Executive Director of B'Tselem, and Guy Shalev, CEO of Physicians for Human Rights in Israel, thank you both very much for joining us on this important report.